They kicked her out for being poor. A billionaire rolled down the window of his red Lamborghini and told her she would always be poor. What he didn't realize was that he had just given her the reason to rise. Before we begin, I want you to hold something close. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet once sat alone on a sidewalk, wondering if their life was over. And sometimes, the worst words spoken over you become the fire that rebuilds you. If my voice still finds a home in your heart, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from, and which part of the story hit you the hardest. I believe this story found you today for a reason. Now let's begin. Hand in hand, heart to heart, Florida, golden hour, traffic roaring past Biscayne Boulevard. The sky burned orange over the water, and the heat from the asphalt rose to the thin fabric of Edna J. Walker's worn purple dress. Her entire life sat beside her in a torn duffel bag. 2 plastic cups, folded clothes, and a rolled mat she had bought from Walmart during better days. That morning, her landlord in Miami had taped the eviction notice to her door. Her credit cards were maxed. Her savings drained after losing her job at Whole Foods Market in Washington. D.C. her calls unanswered. And now she was kneeling on the side of a Florida highway, trying not to cry where strangers could see her break. That's when traffic slowed, and the red Lamborghini stopped. Inside sat Frank Nichol, billionaire developer, owner of Billionaire's Bunker Mansion, located island in Biscayne Bay, Florida, United States. He didn't see a woman. He saw a statistic. He stepped out in a tailored black suit, polished shoes never touching dust long enough to understand it. He looked down at her and said, "You'll never change your life sitting on the ground blaming the world. Poor isn't a condition. It's a decision." The cars kept moving. The world kept spinning. And for a moment, Edna felt like she had disappeared. But something inside her didn't break. It burned. What Frank Nichol didn't know in that moment, what he couldn't possibly understand, was that the woman kneeling on that Florida pavement had already survived more than he ever would. Because just a year earlier, in Washington, D.C., Edna J. Walker believed her life was finally stabilizing. And that's where this story really begins. But Florida didn't care about what she had survived. Florida cared about what she looked like right now, a woman on her knees beside the road. Frank stepped fully out of his Lamborghini, the late sun catching the sharp edges of his tailored black suit. His shoes never touched anything unpolished for long. People slowed their cars. A few pedestrians paused. Someone across the street lifted a phone. He didn't lower his voice. "You people stay poor because you don't think bigger," he said, scanning her like a problem to solve. "You blame rent. You blame the system. But poor isn't a condition. It's a decision." The words landed harder than the eviction notice. Edna felt her chest cave inward, not because she believed him, but because strangers were watching. Because humiliation in America doesn't just hurt, it performs. It becomes content. A teenager whispered, "That's Frank Nichol," as if that explained everything. Frank slid back into his car, engine growling, and in seconds the red Lamborghini melted into traffic like nothing had happened. But everything had happened that night at a women's shelter in Miami. Edna lay awake on a narrow cot staring at a ceiling stained with old leaks. The room smelled like disinfectant and quiet despair. Around her, other women slept with their purses tucked under pillows. She replayed his voice again and again. Poor isn't a condition. It's a decision. Fine, she thought. Then I decide differently. She sat up, borrowed a pen from the front desk, and on a free legal pad began writing. Waterfront estates, vendor coordination, security clearances, delivery scheduling. She had watched enough luxury construction in Florida to see the gap. No investors, no safety net, just strategy. And if you've ever had someone speak over your life like you were already finished, stay with the story. Because some of us are still writing our comeback, the BY sunrise. Edna had already made a decision. If poor was a decision, then so was rebuilding. The next morning, She walked into the Miami-Dade Public Library with the same duffel bag that had rested beside her on Biscayne Boulevard. The air conditioning felt almost sacred against the Florida heat. College students typed quietly. A retiree read the Miami Herald. No one knew the woman at Computer Station 14 had slept in a shelter hours earlier. She opened a browser and started studying Florida's real estate surge. Luxury waterfront construction, private docks, estate security clearances, high-end deliveries requiring coordination between contractors, marina access, and gated communities. Biscayne Bay wasn't just water and skyline. It was money layered on top of money. And behind every mansion was chaos disguised as elegance. That's when she saw it. The gap. $1-million homes running on last-minute phone calls. Contractors missing dock permits. Delivery trucks turned away by HOA security. No one managing the moving pieces. The ultra-wealthy paid for convenience. And no one was owning that lane. Her hands trembled slightly as she filled out the online registration form. Walker Estate Logistics, LLC. It felt too bold, too official, too impossible. She clicked submit anyway. The first phone call she made to a dock renovation contractor ended with polite dismissal. We already have someone. The second didn't return her message. The third contractor, working a mid-sized project in Coral Gables, sounded overwhelmed. You saying you handle marina permits and delivery schedules? He asked skeptically. Yes, sir, she said. Her voice didn't shake this time. End to end. He agreed to a trial week. That night, she barely slept. Not from fear of failure, but from the weight of possibility. Hope is terrifying when you've just hit bottom, but quiet determination is stronger. And Edna J. Walker decided she would never kneel again. Success did not arrive in a dramatic wave. It came in early mornings, in spreadsheets, in polite emails that said, just following up. 2 years passed like that, not glamorous, not cinematic, just steady. Walker Estate Logistics began as one contractor in Coral Gables, then 2, then 5. Soon Edna was coordinating dock permits for waterfront properties along Biscayne Bay, scheduling stone deliveries for custom patios, managing tight security access for gated island estates where privacy was currency.
She learned the language of HOA regulations the way some people learn a second language. She memorized marina codes. She kept laminated copies of permit requirements in her car. She answered calls at 5:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. The wealthy didn't tolerate mistakes, so she didn't make them. Word traveled quietly among contractors. If you want it done without drama, call Walker. She built a discreet vendor network. Electricians, marine inspectors, landscaping teams, all vetted, all dependable. No leaks, no gossip, no chaos. Then came the first major break. A high-profile estate renovation connected to Zion, one of Frank Nichols' close business associates. The contract was triple anything she had handled before. More pressure, more eyes watching. She executed it flawlessly. A month later, at a corporate appreciation event in Brick Hill, she met Matthew, another of Frank's inner circle. He shook her hand firmly. "I've heard your name," he said. "You're efficient." That word meant more to her than praise. Efficient meant trusted. Frank Nichols' name began to appear in conversations, not directly with her, but in project circles, in business references, in whispered admiration of his empire. She never flinched. She didn't build her company to prove him wrong. She built it because the grind demanded it. No revenge, just work. And with every contract completed, every estate secured, Edna climbed, not loudly, not boastfully, but steadily. The woman who once knelt on asphalt was now walking waterfront properties worth more than she had ever imagined, and she did it without ever looking back. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning. Heavy, black, her name embossed in gold script. Edna J. Walker, Walker Estate Logistics, LLC. No return address needed. She already recognized the insignia pressed into the wax seal. Frank Nickel Enterprises. Inside was a formal invitation to a private fundraising gala, black tie, by boat transfer only, hosted at Billionaire's bunker mansion, located island in Biscayne Bay, Florida, United States. Her fingers paused on the edge of the card. For a moment, she was back on the pavement, heat rising from asphalt, traffic blurring past. A red Lamborghini door opening. He doesn't recognize me, she realized. To him, she was just another vendor, another name added to the guest list, because her company now handled logistics for half the waterfront developments connected to a circle. He had no idea who Walker Estate Logistics truly was. She folded the invitation once, then unfolded it again. Ignore it, decline politely, send a representative, or walk into the very world that once dismissed her and let the air shift on its own. The debate wasn't about pride anymore. It was about peace. She had built something real, something steady, something no insult could erase. Maybe closure didn't mean confrontation. Maybe it meant showing up unshaken. By sunset, her decision felt clear. She would attend, not for revenge, not for applause, but because she no longer feared rooms filled with people who once would look through her. Sometimes the hardest room to walk into is the one where you were once dismissed. If you believe in facing the places that try to shrink you, carry this story with you. Edna placed the black envelope back on her desk and began planning what she would wear. The boat ride across Biscayne Bay was quiet, the water dark and glassy beneath the Florida night sky. Miami's skyline shimmered behind her, but ahead, rising from its private island like something untouchable, stood Billionaire's bunker mansion. White stone walls, floor-to-ceiling glass, security stationed at every dock. The kind of place built to separate power from the rest of the world. As the boat eased into the private marina, uniformed staff checked names against a digital list. Discreet earpieces, subtle scanning, precision everywhere. Edna stepped onto the dock in a midnight silk gown that moved like water under soft lighting. No logos, no loud statements, just quiet confidence stitched into every seam. Inside, the estate glowed. Champagne towers, string quartet near the balcony. Florida's elite mingling, developers, hedge fund executives, tech founders, state officials. The air smelled of citrus and expensive cologne. Ms. Walker, a familiar voice greeted her. Tim Nickel extended his hand first, his smile polished but genuine. Josh followed with equal professionalism. Your work on the West Bay project was flawless. Josh added, we appreciate efficiency. Thank you, Edna replied calmly. Across the room, Zion lifted his glass toward her in acknowledgement. Matthew crossed the floor to greet her personally. Didn't expect you to miss this, he said warmly. Half the waterfront's running smoother because of you. Respect. Earned. Undeniable. Then it happened. Frank Nickel turned. At first, he scanned the room absently. Then his eyes paused. Recognition didn't strike instantly. It flickered, subtle, a tightening around his gaze. A slow, searching stillness. The roadside, the purple dress, the asphalt heat, now replaced with silk, poise, presence. He knew, not fully, not yet, but something inside him shifted. And in that quiet moment, before a word was spoken, the power in the room tilted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough. The music inside softened as the glass doors slid closed behind them. The balcony overlooked Biscayne Bay, the water stretching black and endless beneath the moonlight. Boats shimmered in the distance. Miami's skyline pulsed faintly across the horizon. Frank Nickel stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back the way powerful men often stand when they're unsure what to do with their own discomfort. For a moment, neither spoke. Then quietly, almost cautiously, he said, I know you. Edna kept her eyes on the water. Yes, she replied evenly. You do. The breeze lifted a strand of her hair, and for the first time since she'd arrived, the memory stood clearly between them. Florida heat, asphalt, a torn duffel bag, his shadow falling over her. Frank exhaled slowly. I didn't expect this, he admitted. When I saw your name on vendor reports, I didn't connect it. Not until tonight. She turned toward him then, not with anger, not with softness, just clarity. You didn't expect me to be here, she said. He didn't deny it. After a long pause, his voice, did I? He hesitated, searching for something he wasn't used to needing. Did I help you or hurt you? It wasn't arrogance this time. It was uncertainty. Edna studied him carefully. The same man, the same presence, but no longer towering. You hurt me, she said without hesitation. You humiliated me in front of strangers when I was already at my lowest. The truth sat heavy in the night air. But, she continued, steady and unshaken, I chose to turn that pain into power. Don't confuse cruelty with inspiration. I built this because I refused to stay where you left me. Silence followed. Frank looked out over the water, but something in his posture had changed. His certainty, the effortless superiority, had cracked. For the first time in his life, Frank Nichol looked unsettled, not because she attacked him, but because she didn't need him at all. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as the quartet finished their set. Glasses clinked. Conversations softened. A staff member handed Frank a microphone. He stepped to the center of the room, posture restored but not as rigid as before. The elite crowd, developers, investors, political figures, turned their attention toward him. Thank you all for being here tonight. He began smoothly, raising his glass. Your support for this foundation means more than you know. Polite applause. He continued, speaking about growth opportunity, the Florida real estate expansion that had reshaped Biscayne Bay. Familiar territory. Controlled. Then he stopped, just for a second. His eyes drifted across the room and landed on Edna. The pause stretched longer than planned. Zion noticed first, his expression sharpening. Matthew's brows lifted subtly. Tim and Josh exchanged a brief glance, sensing something unscripted unfolding. Frank cleared his throat. There's someone here tonight, he said slowly, who taught me something I didn't expect to learn. The room quieted. I once judged her without knowing her story. The words fell differently than his usual speeches. Not polished, not rehearsed. A ripple moved through the guests. Frank didn't look away from Edna. I saw a moment, he continued, and believed I understood the whole person. I believed wealth meant wisdom. I was wrong. Silence. Not awkward, reflective. Zion's posture eased. Matthew gave a slight nod, acknowledging the shift. Tim folded his arms thoughtfully. Josh exhaled, almost relieved. Frank lowered his glass. I was wrong, he repeated, this time without embellishment. The humility was unfamiliar on him, real, uncomfortable, and in that discomfort, something powerful happened. The room did not erupt into applause. It absorbed the truth. Redemption rarely arrives with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives with a simple admission. And tonight, in a mansion built on power and perception, accountability had entered the room. The boat pulled away from the private dock in slow silence. Behind her, Billionaire's bunker mansion glowed like a monument to power, its white walls reflecting moonlight across Biscayne Bay. The music inside had resumed, softer now, less certain. Edna stood near the railing, the night air cool against her skin. Miami's skyline shimmered ahead. Glass towers, distant headlights, the hum of a city that never asked permission to grow. She didn't feel victorious. She felt free. Frank's apology had not healed her. It had not built her company. It had not carried her through the shelter nights or the library mornings. She had done that, and she had never truly needed his validation to know it. On the dock, Frank remained standing long after the boat drifted beyond earshot. His brothers lingered nearby. Guests resumed conversation carefully, as if something sacred had shifted in the room. Zion stepped beside him. You've never apologized like that before, he said quietly. Frank kept his eyes on the water. Because I've never met someone stronger. The admission wasn't about her success. It was about her refusal to stay small. Out on the bay, Edna watched the mansion shrink behind her. She thought about the sidewalk, the purple dress, the asphalt heat rising through her palms. And she smiled, not because she had proven him wrong, but because she had proven herself right. If you've ever been told you were nothing, remember this. The ground you kneel on today might be the foundation you build on tomorrow. And if this story reminded you that dignity matters more than wealth, then hold on to it. Because stories like this survive only when hearts refuse to forget them. He said poor was a decision. She decided to rise. And in doing so, she changed more than her life. She changes that. If you love this story, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from and which part of the story hit you the hardest. We've got more powerful, emotional stories coming your way, and trust me, you don't want to miss them.